Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
The 2016 report from Upwork and Freelancers Union found that more people than ever are choosing to freelance, up from 55 million in this year, or 35% of the total U.S. workforce. As many as 81% of traditional workers surveyed said they would be willing to be a freelancer and do additional work outside of their primary job if it was available to them and allowed them to make more money. The gig economy right now is a hot topic, and I feel like I'm getting every fifth email solicitation an opportunity to download a white paper, an ebook, or view an infographic related to the gig economy or the freelance workforce. It is changing our business. However, I wanted us to take a different spin and maybe take a different look at how it's changing that. And that starts with going straight to the source. So for this Workology podcast, I'm going to be looking at who is really the freelance workforce. And today I'm talking with Heidi Brandis, a full-time freelance writer and editor. Heidi, welcome to the Workology podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm a traditional journalist. I actually graduated college with a journalism degree and spent 15 years in journalism in community newspapers, where I was a reporter, I was an editor, at one time editor of up to 11 newspapers here in Oklahoma. When I got out of journalism, I got into PR on the nonprofit side, but I was still freelancing on the side. I really enjoyed doing stories and writing things like that. So I was doing freelance the whole time I was working full time as a PR person. And it got to a point finally where I was getting so much freelance work on the side that I could conceivably quit my full-time job and do this. And I turned 40 something and decided, if I'm ever going to do it, now's the time to do it. So I said, what the heck? What's the worst that could happen? I would fail miserably. I'd have to go get another job that I love to do. So I took the plunge. I did it. And 4 years later, seems to be going okay.
Well, that's great. And it's a good story. So you were doing the freelancing on the side, just like maybe many folks are, graphic designing or coding or project work or driving their Ubers on the side. And then you decided to make this a full-time thing.
Yeah. And it was a nice little chunk of income outside of my regular work. And it was something I enjoyed doing because I still love doing the articles. I still love doing the interviews and writing all the white papers, the magazine articles, things like that. So I never thought of it as a chore or something I had to do. It's just something I enjoyed. But then suddenly, I'm giving up all my lunch hours, all my off work hours to freelancing because I started getting so much work. And that's when it occurred to me, hey, I could maybe do this on my own. I could maybe make my own career, be my own boss, and actually have my own business doing this. And it happened that way. And I love it. I haven't looked back since.
Does it feel a little weird to be interviewed versus what you traditionally are the one doing the interviewing?
Well, I have to thank being a PR person, I was a spokesperson for a major nonprofit here for 7 years. So I got used to being on TV and being interviewed on the radio and things like that. I actually really like it. Who doesn't like talking about themselves, Well,
that's what we're talking about today. So what do you love about being a freelancer? What is your favorite reason for staying a freelancer and really kind of putting yourself out there and doing a lot of different types of project and journalism work?
Honestly, it's the absolute freedom I have. I mean, when you say you are your own boss, I really am my own boss. I can choose to sleep in that day and not get any work done, i.e. not get paid that day. Or, I can work from anywhere. I spent a month in Africa, but as long as I have Wi-Fi, I can still work. And that's what I really love about it is the absolute freedom to be able to do the amount of work I want, when I want to do it, where I want to do it, and not have the traditional constraints of an office environment. I remember there were times when I was working in nonprofit, I'd be done by noon, but I wouldn't be able to leave because, well, traditionally I'm supposed to stay there till 5. That's what they're paying me to do. And I'm a very fast worker. So that was always very frustrating to me. I honestly, I love the freedom of being my own boss, and I can choose which articles I write. In newspapers, sometimes you would have to write articles. You're like, I really don't want to write this, but you'd have to because it's your job. Now, as a freelancer and a contractor, I can accept work, I can deny work. I pick and choose which pieces I want to write about, and that's very satisfying as well.
You have a lot more control over your work hours, your flexibility, and the work that you're doing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But there is a downside to it as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So, the downside, what is that?
Well, the downside is the lack of security. If you're in an office environment, you're a traditional employee, you know exactly how much you're going to get every paycheck every 2 weeks. I start every month. I have no idea what I'm going to make this month. It would be nice to have more retainer clients where I know I have, X amount of money coming from this client, X amount of money from this client. I usually do. But, I think that is one of the scariest things when people start considering freelancing is the total insecurity of, your finances. Some months I make, X amount of money, and some months I fall way short and I start looking at who's hiring for Uber. So there is that very scary feeling of, I don't know how much I'm making on a regular basis every month. Some months are really good months. I mean, upwards of thousands of dollars. In other months, it's like, okay, well, I can afford to pay my electric bill and buy a hamburger, and that's about it. So, there is that. And the fact that I don't get benefits. I have to pay for my own health insurance. I don't get vacation pay. So if I go on vacation, I have to work on vacation because I need that money coming in. Then again, I'm always on vacation, you know? At least that's what it feels like, and I just choose to work. But yeah, I think it's the financial insecurity that is the biggest downside of freelancing. But yeah, so you have to think about, and then again, taxes. I pay a little more as a independent journalist, as an entrepreneur with an LLC. I pay a little more in taxes than I would as a traditional employer because your employer takes that money out and pays for Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of stuff. I have to think about that as well. And me not being very good with money or accounting or things like that, I find it a good investment to hire a really good accountant, which is something I've never had to consider before. Okay, what do I have to outsource because I'm not good at it? And accounting was one of them.
I think that's a good point that you're mentioning outsourcing, because in the corporate world, we do outsource, but it's looked upon differently in the freelance world. I mean, if you can't do something, you find an expert who can, and you send them that work, or you leverage their expertise.
Absolutely. And, in the world of freelance writers or freelance people, we do a lot of trade outs. Like I have a buddy who's really good at web design. If I need a website designed, I'll talk to him and say, hey, if you design my website, I'll give you X amount of web copy. So you get a lot of this kind of bartering between independent creatives that sometimes it works out very well.
I like that. It's like the bartering economy, where you're trading services. But that does happen a lot in the freelance small business side as well.
It does. It does. If I need some help on social media marketing, I may hit up one of my social media marketing gurus and say, hey, I'll do X amount of blog posts for you for free if you will help me with this. And yeah, it's kind of a unique economy that way because I'm not paying them and they're not paying me, but we're both getting something of value out of it.
Well, let's talk switch gears a little bit and talk about how the traditional workforce is a little bit different. And traditionally, employers rely on job postings and job boards to find workers. But with the gig economy that's changing, what are the best ways, in your opinion, for leaders to find freelancers to work on projects or get hired on contract?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Speaking from my own personal experience, the majority of the work I get is from referrals. So if somebody is looking for a freelance writer, they'll talk to somebody they know and they're like, hey, I'm really looking for a freelance writer. And it might be somebody who knows me off of Twitter or Facebook or just by reputation. And they'll go, hey, call Heidi Brandis. She's a pretty active freelancer in this area. And I cannot tell you how many emails or phone calls I get going, hey, so-and-so referred you. Would you be interested in doing a couple pieces for us, or doing a corporate blog, or writing some articles? So I would say the majority of my work comes from referrals. So if you're a traditional employer and you're looking for a freelancer, start asking around in your circle. Ask the people you trust, because more than likely they'll know somebody who's an excellent web designer, an excellent writer, excellent photographer, excellent IT person. Whatever you need, there's somebody out there who's freelancing, and somebody knows that person and will be able to refer you.
I think that's a good point about networking and referrals, and really how that drives the freelance economy, because without work, like you said before, we don't eat. So you need to have a good network to rely on to keep opportunities coming in your pipeline. Because the reality is that, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, is that you might have 7 opportunities happening right now that you're working on, but you might only have 2 of those 7 that come to fruition. So you need to continue to have a big pipeline of opportunities to come in.
Oh yeah. You're always hustling, always hustling. And then again, there are these professional groups, like for instance, with freelance writers, Society for Professional Journalists, which I'm a member of. They have a section on their page strictly for freelancers that lists me as a resource. And that's how I got tied in with Forbes magazine. They were looking for a Oklahoma-based freelancer. They went to the SPJ website. They looked under freelancer. Boom, they found me. So you can also go to these professional organization websites and look for contractors that way as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's take a bit of a reset here. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you're listening to the Workology podcast. Today, we're talking all about the freelance economy, and the gig economy, as you might hear it called quite often. But we're flipping it a little bit, and we're actually talking, and this is a shocker, but we're actually talking to a freelancer, and that person today is Heidi Brandis. And you can follow Heidi on Twitter at Heidi Wright. That's HEIDE. WRITE. And sometimes that's the only way we talk to one another, Facebook and Twitter.
You and I we met on Twitter, and had some of my best friends have come from Twitter. So I love social media.
It's definitely a great way to connect with a variety of people and just be able to be introduced to new ideas and different ways of thinking too.
And it is. And it's a great marketing tool on top of that.
Well, one of the things about being a freelancer is your ability to work with multiple clients at the same time. How do you make sure that you meet deadlines and get work done?
Discipline. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, there is sometimes I'll be sitting at my desk, I'll make a phone call. It's like, hi, this is Heidi Brandis with XYZ magazine. I need to speak to you about this. Hang up the phone, pick up the phone. Hi, this is Heidi Brandis with ABC magazine. Hang up the phone, pick up the phone. Hi, this is Heidi Brandis with so-and-so company. That's the hardest part, is like, okay, who am I writing for today? But with all this technology out there and all these to-doodles and task lists, I'm pretty old-fashioned. I have a notepad that has all my stories and when they're due, and I write it down by hand, as we learned today when it took us an hour for me to learn how to install Skype. So
I don't think it was a big deal at all, but I think it's interesting because sometimes people make assumptions about somebody who's independent or a freelancer that it's not necessarily choice. It's because they're unemployed and they can't find work, but that's not the case at all. You make a choice to be a freelancer, and you are the master tasker when you are doing this.
Yeah, you are. And I think it does take a little more discipline, as you know, being an entrepreneur, to set your day. When I first started freelancing, every morning I would get up, a set time. I go have coffee downtown, which is about 20 miles from my house, at 9 a.m. every morning. And that's what gets me up, showered, dressed professionally, and out the door. And to this day, I still do that. Every morning, I'm in that same coffee shop at 9 a.m. with the same group of people because I promised myself I would not be one of those freelancers that sleeps till noon every day, lives in pajamas, doesn't shower for days on end, never leaves the house. So that's my discipline. That's my, I guess, ritual to still be, quote, a professional person and act in a professional manner. Because otherwise, it is very easy to slip into, I don't have a boss. I could sleep till 10. Oh, I could sleep till noon. Oh, I don't have to get this story done today. I'll do it tomorrow. So you do have to really police yourself sometimes.
It takes a special person. I will say that I am one of those people who does work at home a lot, and I'm in my yoga pants and my t-shirts, and occasionally I have to get out amongst the people and put on some makeup, maybe take a shower occasionally, and go out and meet with folks because it is sometimes really lonely.
It is. And, everybody asks that. Besides the financial insecurity of being a freelancer, which you can get around, the hardest part is the loneliness factor. Because if you're used to having coworkers that you see every day, and then you get kind of holed up in your house, just typing and doing interviews and writing, it can be very, very lonely. I'm not a big fan of working in coffee shops because I find them very distracting, but I have other freelancers, other entrepreneurs that have opened their doors to say, hey, anytime you want to work, just pop in here. We'll give you a desk, which is very, very nice. But I think you need that social aspect to stay connected because that's what got you into freelancing to begin with is you have this huge network of people who are willing to hire you. But once you become a freelancer, you become a hermit and you stop meeting people and that network starts dissolving. And you really have to work at keeping that network active. And that's by being social and talking to people and going out to the professional happy hours and professional meetings and, things like that. So it's also a work investment to go out and be social.
It's one of the reasons I started this podcast, so I would continue to connect with folks and make new relationships and build new friendships, because especially when you're remote, and most of my work is not in the state of Oklahoma, it's other places, you're really challenged because there's maybe 6, maybe 15 conferences a year that I go to on the regular, kind of just depends, but it's hard to keep up with folks.
It is. And so, there is that danger of becoming the freelance hermit as well. And for the longest time, I think with freelancers too, we tend to gravitate towards each other, and we'll have like independent happy hours where everybody who's an independent web designer or journalist or photographer or what have you will get together because you also have those shared experiences and can help each other out. Oh, who do you use to do your taxes? Or what do you do about this? Because you can't really talk to traditional employees who have a 9-to-5 job about some of the issues that you face as a freelancer. But you can talk to other independents and they know exactly what you're going through.
I think that's a good point to mention as we think about the Workology podcast and the HR community and the recruiting community that we're providing resources for, maybe providing your contract workers and your freelancers an opportunity to connect with one another so that they can build that network and have that camaraderie because they have the same situation, scenarios, fears, all those things happening for them that are very different from full-time workers.
It is true. And I've been hired locally, if it's within the city or 100 miles where I work. I've had one or two of them go, hey, if you want to come over to our office and work on our project in our office, you're more than welcome to. We've got a desk here for you. We've got coffee, It's a real treat to do that because that way I get to go in and see what their company is like. I get to meet new people, interact with their employees, and for a little bit, feel like I'm, part of their team, not just their contract worker, if companies had that option to offer, hey, we're going to hire you to design our website or write our annual report. Why don't you come in? Check us out. We got a desk here for you. You're more than welcome. So, talking to HR people, if you're going to hire somebody and you can, invite them over. They like that. We like to be invited over.
One thing I wanted to mention is that it looks like as of today, and this podcast is being recorded on March 24th, so it's on a Friday sort of afternoon. It looks like the Obamacare is going to be continuing the Affordable Care Act for the foreseeable future. So do you think that this continuation is going to help or hurt freelancing?
That's a tricky question because Obamacare to me has always been very confusing, but I do have affordable health care. When they started talking about repealing it, of course, it's very concerning because I have to pay for my own. I'm not offered any, and because I'm a one-person show, I don't get to join in with the Freelancers Union or anything like that. So I'm apolitical about healthcare as long as I can get it and I can get it affordably and it covers things. I'm pretty happy with whatever they've got to offer. But then again, I also try to stay as healthy as possible so I don't have to use healthcare. And another thing with freelancers too, get out and exercise. God's sakes, exercise and stay healthy because, we don't have really great healthcare as freelancers, unless you're part of a union. And if you can find a union, that's the way to go because then you can buy into the group healthcare and that's awesome. But usually you have to have at least 2 people in the company to do that. So, which I don't. I'm a one-person show.
What advice do you have for someone who is wanting to put themselves out there and maybe start freelancing part-time or full-time?
Well, just do it. If you're at a traditional office and you're working full-time, but you have a skill that you can freelance with, start taking on little jobs, especially say with writing. If you belong to an organization or a church or something, offer to start writing some stuff and then reach out to editors, reach out to other freelancers. You'd be surprised how open freelancers are to helping other people make contacts. There's enough work to go around, I promise you. So when people are like, hey, I would really like to work for XYZ magazine, how do I do it? It was like, well, let me make a virtual introduction to my editor. So, be brave. Go out there. You don't have to make it a full-time career like I did, but it's always nice to have extra money coming in. If you can make extra money freelancing on the side and you have the discipline and the time to do it, why not? Why not? I mean, it's extra money, right?
Heidi, thank you for joining us today on the Workology podcast. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, I do have a website at www.heidewrites.com. That's HeideWrites.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Heidi Wright, HeideWrite, or find me on LinkedIn under Heidi Brandes, Brandes.
Awesome. And thank you, too, for joining the Workology podcast today. I think it is so important for us to go beyond the ebooks and the white papers and the reporting and talk to freelancers and get inside and learn more about what they like, what they don't like, and really what their life is like. So thank you for joining the Workology podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller Merrill. Until next time, you can visit workology.com and listen to all our previous podcast episodes.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.